it really does depend on where padding lies. So it's like the design of how the padding goes in, it goes within the helmets. So when I was recently with the ice hockey guys, small helmets were the only helmets that we had an issue with, just simply because they were a lot closer to the skull, and the design was slightly different to the medium and the large. But it was still able to be manipulated in, so you were able to put it in, just applying pressure in the right places. So they do work for those instances, and it does typically depend on the design of the helmet as to whether you put the glasses on then put the helmet on, or whether it's the helmet on and then the glasses. But it completely depends on the design of the helmet in that instance. But they do work in that sense.
Okay, well, if you're interested in doing anything with horses and riding, by all means, I'll take it on.
I think that'd be fantastic. However, I used to have horses as when I was younger, so always got a keen interest in horses. So I think that'd be a great place to start looking.
Great, thank you very much.
Cool, thanks, Emma.
So thank you very much, Lee. We have a little pause in this room now for about 20 minutes because we haven't got a speaker, but we have got a speaker lined up for the third slot, which starts at 10 to 11. So feel free to jump into another room whilst we wait, or feel free to stay in this room equally until the third speaker. But once again, thank you very much, Lee, for the really fascinating talk on eye trackers there.
Thanks very much, Max.
Thank you, Maxwell. So yeah, as already said, I'm a sport and exercise psychologist in training. So I'm currently training along the British Psychological Society pathway to become HCPC registered. So I've got about 18 months to go with that. And I've been sort of working alongside athletes from different sports, both at team level, but also on an individual basis as well. But what I'm going to talk about today is work that I've been doing with a particular sports team, and some of the foundation work that has helped me to identify what their needs are to help me to provide the best psychological support that I can for them. So I'm going to go through, give you a little bit of background. I'm going to talk through the needs analysis, what I did, what my psychological involvement was, and also what I learned from doing this. So hopefully that's kind of helpful for people, whatever sort of role you're kind of listening in from, whether you're a coach or a sports science practitioner or a student. Hopefully there'll be something to take away for you. So the team that I've been working with is Northampton Town, and it's the women's football team. So my role in the team is a sports psychologist. I basically had a chat with the coach around September time last year, and they did have a psychologist in place, although I'm not sure if they had sort of consistent support with that. So he sort of, I got in touch with the club, and he asked me to join them in September. So this was the first role that I actually took on in a team sport. And there were lots of challenges that came with that, lots of ups and downs along the way, some of which I will kind of talk about. So like I said, I started in September, so the team had already started the season. They'd already played around 5 or 6 matches. So I was also kind of coming into a team that was already quite well established, or the staff were already in place, and I was almost sort of the last person to join at that time. And also the team had just been promoted, so they were previously playing in what's called Tier 5, and they had been promoted into the next tier, which meant that they were actually now playing in the FA National Women's League. So it was a big step up for them. So another big transition, something that again was quite a challenge. They were struggling at the start of the season. They were struggling on their feet. They were, not getting rest. So there were lots of things within the environment that it was kind of key to sort of note in order to help me think about the support that I could provide them with. They have a really great support staff team. So in that photo, you can see the middle row of people in navy blue. That's all the staff. So there's 2 joint managers. There's a goalkeeper coach. There's a strength and conditioning coach. There's a sports therapist. So we're essentially the multidisciplinary team there. There's also a few who are kind of also backroom staff, but equally as valuable and important to support the players and their development. So I'm next going to talk to you about, give you a bit of background about a needs analysis and what I mean by this. So first of all, why it's important. So from what the research tells us, it's so important to assess people's needs, but also the needs of a team, to understand where they need that support and what I can help them with, but also what the other staff members could help them with as well. And one of the main reasons for having that kind of as a basis in sports teams, particularly within sport, because the environment is filled with lots of adjustments. There's always setbacks that the athletes are going to face, and there's lots of barriers that are going to come up for them, transitions, disappointment, managing difficult situations and all that kind of thing. In terms of what a needs analysis is, it's about understanding the strengths and weaknesses of a team. So learning how they operate, learning how they work well together, learning how they work best, learning how they communicate with each other, how they communicate with the coaches and the staff, and how they respond to things. How do they react to difficult situations? How do they manage their emotions on and off the pitch? What kind of difficulties do they face? So it's really about understanding the team as a collective, but within that, there's also, lots of individuals within that team who bring in different personalities, they bring in different characteristics. So it's about seeing how all of that kind of comes together. And then in terms of how it can help, so essentially where it helped me in undertaking a needs analysis was that I was then able to kind of offer the most appropriate support. It meant that I could actually support the players with things that were relevant to them. So rather than me just coming into the team and saying, this is going to be really helpful, this is going to be, of so much benefit, this is what's worked in other places. It's more about really understanding the team and the support that's actually going to help them because of what they're currently dealing with. And role clarity was a big part of this. So again, for me as the sports psychologist, it helped me to be a lot clearer in what support I could offer players. But again, working alongside the staff team also really helped, and I think it just helped all of us to kind of grow in our role and to be able to kind of support players as best we could. So the approach that I took, it wasn't necessarily linear. It wasn't necessarily a structured sort of assessment that I did, but actually there was a few different things that were helpful for me to recognise what the team actually needed. So I'm just going to talk through each of these things. So first of all, there was a lot of observation work that I did, and that was really crucial. So sometimes when a psychologist comes into a sports team, it can look like that, they're just standing at the side and they're not really doing a lot. But that observation really does form like the foundation of noticing, how the team are responding, observing what's going on for them, observing the environment that they're in, and observing what's going on around them. So observation is really crucial to my role, and like I say, I started off doing lots of observation, but it still kind of underpins what I'm doing at the moment. So every time I go to training, every time I go to matches, I'm still kind of observing behaviours and interactions. Having chats with staff and players was also very crucial. This just helped me to kind of understand the perspective from everybody in the team. So, there were things that I could see, there was things that I observed, but you know, I also wanted to hear from other people, you know, what was the coach's perspective? What did they think the players needed from me? You know, what did the players want themselves? Was there anything that they thought would be useful for the team? Was there any particular strategies they wanted to know about? So yeah, having these kind of, you know, whether it was just a quick chat, you know, for 5 minutes with the strength and conditioning coach, because he may have spoken to a player and he may have been aware of things that perhaps I wasn't. So just having a quick chat with some of them, or you know, whether it was like a 20 or 30-minute conversation, you know, speaking to a player about something that might have happened at the weekend or during or after a match. So that also just helped me to gain a better understanding of what the players needed. Coming on to the player performance profiles, if this is something that you're not familiar with, I'll just kind of briefly explain. So you can do player performance profiles with individuals, or you can actually do it collectively as a team. And this was something that I kind of introduced sort of mid-season, sort of just before Christmas. I started it off and into January. And I spoke to each player individually and developed a performance profile. And what I did was I asked them to kind of tell me what they thought the key characteristics were of a great football player. So asking them to basically identify the personal qualities or characteristics that they would need to be a successful football player. So they came up with different things, and the next stage is to ask them to rate the importance of each of those characteristics, and then also give themselves a self-rating for each characteristic. So for example, the one characteristic might be confidence. So they would rate how important they felt it was to be confident as a football player in order to be successful. And then they would rate how much confidence they felt that they had. And then that allowed me to see like where any discrepancies were between characteristics that they rated quite highly on importance, but for their self-rating may have been a little bit lower. And that allowed me to generate conversations around their own personal individual goals, you know, where they kind of see themselves and where they want to develop, and what they might kind of want to focus on. And I think when I sort of introduced this idea to the coaches, it was something they were really keen on, because it's, you know, something that they kind of wanted to do quite a lot more of themselves, in terms of, you know, really speaking to individuals about what they want to achieve and where they see themselves going, but they just didn't have the time and the resources to do that with the training schedule that we had. So they felt it was quite valuable for me to kind of take that role on. I had the time to do that when I was at training, and all information that was gathered, I made players aware that, you know, that I was going to be sharing kind of that information with the coaches. So just checked in with that, making sure that you know, if they wanted anything to stay confidential, then, you know, obviously that is part of my role as well. So they knew that information would be shared with the rest of the staff. And then finally, there was a weekly wellness form that I also implemented. So this was a kind of a form that I asked players to fill in on a weekly basis. So the day after they had a match, which measured kind of how they were feeling, what mood they were in, whether they were tired, fatigued, so also some physical symptoms. And just to see how they thought the match went, so from their own individual perspective, how their performance went, and whether they used any kind of coping strategies during the match as well. So essentially, what I'm trying to say from this slide is that there were a range of things that helped me to recognise the needs of the team, to recognise the strengths and weaknesses of different players, and that all of that helped me to inform the psychological work that I was able to provide them with. So just moving on to the psychology work that I did. So there was a variety of team workshops that I implemented with the team. And like I say, this came from the observations that I did, you know, what I observed during training and matches in terms of how they're responding to difficult situations, from chats with the coaches about what they felt would help the players, and also from those individual player performance profiles. So confidence was one of the things that actually a lot of individual players were talking to me about, that they felt that they lacked, which was quite surprising for the staff to hear. So one of the workshops I did was actually around helping them to think about how they could build confidence. But yeah, my psychology work, also kind of expanded to supporting the player, having more of an input in the support to players at matches and at training, speaking to players, if they were feeling nervous, if they were feeling kind of worried before a match, or even afterwards, just speaking to players about how they were coping with any challenges that they faced. And also, in terms of the staff as well, the coaches were very keen for me to sort of take on more in my role, and to bring in my ideas, because they could see the value that could bring to the team through the needs analysis that I'd done. So I'm just going to go through a couple of reflections here in terms of what I learned from doing this. So yeah, the big one is that, it was so important to understand the team's needs, so that I could support them in a way that felt right for them. If I was just coming in and, just kind of telling them what to do, or bringing in just my own ideas, then, it probably would have been something that they might have just switched off. They might not have understood why I was there, what I was doing. So actually building it into, and actually just embedding it more into the team and the processes that they already had was really important. The role clarity. So this was one of the challenges I faced at the start. Like I said, I was sort of kind of a new body into the team, whilst it was quite established. So at first it was difficult to know where I could help, but also one of the key lessons as well was ensuring that the players knew what I was there to do as well, and just having that, building up the rapport with players, setting expectations that they knew what kind of support I could provide them with. They knew how to contact me. They knew that I was there to support them just as much as all of the other support staff. What I have done this season, some of it, especially because there have been some challenges and ups and downs and some difficulties along the way, a lot of it has been trial and error to see what does work for them, what is gonna work for them moving forward. So a lot of that has I've reflected on how I can actually work with the team next season, and I've got a few more ideas to bring into the team and have a more structured sort of psychological program in place to support them with some of the challenges they faced this year. And then also the importance of working as a multidisciplinary team. That has been really helpful in just that communication, having that effective communication with all of the support staff, with the coaches. The coaches are very much on board on us trying to work more collaboratively together, and really, bring our best, being the experts in each specific field that we work in. They really want us to kind of bring our best to the pitch. Like I say, resources do tend to be lacking, and time, and time to even just have those meetings and things. But this is all work in progress, and something that we've just kind of learned is going to be crucial to helping to get the best out of the team and the players. So thank you very much for listening today. If anyone's got any questions, I'd be happy to take those. And my contact details are also on the slide if anyone wants to get in touch. Thank you.
Excellent, Sarah. Thank you very much. It's super interesting to see sports psychology in practice there. So have we got any questions from the floor? Any questions from people? We've got a big crowd of 37. No questions? I've got questions. So it sounds like observations were a real key part of your practice in there. I was just wondering if there was any sort of salient or important observations that you picked up when you were doing your needs analysis that really shaped, the future intervention work you did.
Yeah, I think this is what people actually ask me all the time as well. Like I say, sometimes you'll just see the sports psychologist standing at the side, and no one really knows what they're doing. So yeah, people do ask you, what is it that you're looking out for? I think, you know, generally it probably depends on the team as well that you're observing and what you're sort of noticing. But I think one of the key things for me was how they were dealing with difficult situations. So particularly at matches, you know, if we went into a game and on paper we maybe should have won, but we lost. It was actually looking at how, you know, how were they actually responding to, you know, the first goal being scored, you know, what was going on. Like I could observe some really clear behaviours, you know, dropping their head, their body language, but also, you know, I was kind of observing even before the match started, you know, what kind of things in the environment may have brought about the behaviours that they were showing on the pitch, and particularly the behaviours that perhaps led to the defeat, and that helped me to sort of understand how could I support them in terms of that mental preparation for a match, or those key things that are difficult in a match, such as, you know, conceding the first goal. You know, how can I mentally prepare them for that so that we can sort of do better next time.
Excellent, thank you. Maybe got time for one really quick question if someone wants to squeeze it in. Otherwise, I'm just going to hog the floor as usual. So one little question, but I suppose it's actually not a little question. It's maybe an unfair question to finish on, but what is your personal philosophy, and, you know, how did that maybe shape how you went about things?
Yeah, I mean, you could probably tell from how I've been talking, but I guess my philosophy is around taking that person-centered approach. So actually, you know, recognizing and understanding what a person needs from me, not just going in and making assumptions, but also and again, the initial conversation I had with the coach, he did mention about wanting to be focused on performance throughout the season, and I wasn't sure, you know, where he sat in terms of me kind of also supporting players with their well-being, but yeah, as I went through the season, well-being was a massive part of my role as well, and actually supporting players with not necessarily like, you know, mental health problems, but, you know, just those times where they might have been struggling, where they might have kind of been feeling upset about a particular performance, or they might have been feeling quite anxious about, you know, an important match or a big match that was coming up. So yeah, I always kind of, I feel like it's really important to support the athlete with, you know, what it is that they're kind of going through in that moment, and also understanding that, you know, their well-being is going to impact their performance. So, you know, supporting them to get to a place where they feel comfortable, satisfied, happy is going to, you know, help them to have optimize, you know, their performance and their potential that they can play.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Sarah. It was a really fascinating talk. Okay, so we've got a small break now up until for about 5 minutes, or 4 minutes actually. So until 11:15. And then after that, we have student talks, which are going to be done in the exact same rooms that are currently laid out at the minute. So feel free to stick in these rooms if you want. If your sort of stream of student talks are in this room, the ones that you're interested in, or feel free to hop around to the other rooms. Either way, we've got a couple of minutes break, so go away, get a brew, stretch your legs, and I'll see you all back here.